Hello Ray. Today's band comes from Oslo, Norway, and it's one of the bands that actually doesn't fit what we have here in Rauta. This band is no means metal, it's hardly rock, it's kind of a punkish, but then again not full pure punk in any way. Death punk, if that sounds to you somewhat familiar or something you would recognize as a term, well, that fits the band perfectly because it's the genre the band actually invented themselves, or at least that's what I've been told. This one is called Turbonegro and it comes from Norway. And who would have guessed that this kind of a weird, unique, one-of-a-kind snowflake would actually be able to withstand the stand of time? 30 years, this is as long the band has existed so far, and came along with 10 albums, this one being the 10th one, and lots of more smaller releases to go with. Now, the reason why I decided to include Turbonegro here is that this is one of the weird kind of exceptions to the rule, which kind of fits my taste. I don't know if perfectly, but very goddamn well. See this band somewhat halfway a few years ago live. I must say that that was the kind of last nail that was needed to secure my interest in the band. Now, I'm not a fan of the first albums. They are way too, I don't know, rawish, punkish, whatever type of music to actually make a difference to me. But somewhere in the middle, something changed and I totally started to like this band. And the crazier it went, the weirder it went, the kind of a, I don't know, ordinary it went, if that is something we can actually say about this band, the more I started to like this one. So, let's welcome Turbonegro and let's take a look on their album called RockNRoll Machine. Now, this is not a typical name for the band as an album, but then again it fits totally well with their sense of humor. So, without further ado, let's do a little bit of unboxing and try to figure out what lies underneath. So, here is the CD, which I guess is something that can be described only as Turbonegro albums. Underneath there is barely this kind of a colored thing, and here's the track list. I'm not gonna unbox it to you because you can pretty much see the track list here as well as Google it up. But as you can see, some of the tracks make weird sense, or they're not, like Fist City or Hoffer Nietzsche or John Carpenter Power Ballad. Whoa, something very different, and then again something very Turbonegro. So here's the booklet, and as you can see, this is very 1980s with all the neon colors and kind of a semi-occult images and whatnot. And here is the back of the CD booklet, which is then again opening as such. Kind of something that we used to see with the older CDs. Instead of being a booklet, it's kind of a four-fold booklet, but not a kind of with pages. So here's the weird picture for the band's current lineup, which actually includes the new synth player as well. Now, these lyrics, as you can probably guess for being a Turbonegro, are once again one of a type kind of thing. They're not the type of lyrics you end up reading anywhere else except with Turbonegro albums, and that is one of the greatest points here. But as always, we don't talk so much about lyrics, but the feeling of the music, the feeling of the album, and all of that. Now, those of you who are familiar with what Turbonegro does, I guess this album is as much as a surprise as it is not. The music, however, is something different, but then again, it certainly has this kind of a Turbonegro humor, the feeling that only Turbonegro can actually surprise you with taking your pants down, ramming right it up in your bottom, and making fun while doing it, and making laugh while they are doing it. And those who are not familiar with Turbonegro, I can barely recommend, start with the album. Or maybe, then again, you could pretty much. Because death punk, as a word, as a genre, doesn't mean actually anything but Turbonegro's music. And being changing from album to another, this is kind of like a Marilyn Manson equivalent in the sense that while you can clearly recognize the band, even if the music style changes, all the albums are a little bit different and going weirder directions at some points. Surely there are some similarities with the albums, but every album is a kind of a unique thing. And that very much stands for RockNRoll Machine. Now, the last album before this, Sexual Harassment, what a great title for an album, presented their back then new vocalist, which was something that took a little bit of digesting to actually, believe him or take him as a part of the band as being the kind of a raspy way of, singing, replacing the also great Hank von Helvete. Now this voice is much more familiar after the album that came something like 6 years ago. And now it's very much more easy to actually settle down with the current vocalist, and now he doesn't actually feel that much weird piece of this band, but rather the already kind of a familiar voice expressing his or these lyrics, the way Turbonegro can. But what RockNRoll Machine what makes it so different, I mean, is that this music, while it surely has this kind of a death punk thing on the background, it's more of a glam rock meets hard rock, or trying to put it this way. This is something that slices all the way down through the 1980s. Big bands like AC/DC or The Who or Van Halen or so many other bands doing their hard rock or heavy rock or even glam rock, and you got pretty much the idea what RockNRoll Machine is all about. But that topped up with open homosexuality, leather caps, leather pants, kind of a Tom of Finland type of flirting here and there, the kind of a Turbonegro lyrics, the kind of a weird, bizarre sense of humor and all that stuff twisted in together, mixed and put into kind of, like the machine. And then you blend that smoothie in your glass, take it as a glass of beer, and voila. That is what Turbonegro is all about. Now this might sound so much weirder and so much worse than what it actually is. RockNRoll Machine is kind of a gift to us who were young in the 1980s. So when everything was colored with neon lights and, horrible, overly colored clothes and all that stuff, this is actually what it is. This is kind of a pastiche, having those synths that remind you of, Van Halen, but also those kind of synthwave music, or how it was described at some point. This is kind of a Jean-Michel Jarre, the synthesizer idol icon, whatever, and then having some rock and roll stuff there and mix and match and, I don't know, to create this wonderful combination of familiar ideas, but then put the true to kind of a Turbonegro filter. Does that make sense? Absolutely not. But as you actually give this album the full spin, 2 or 3 or so forth, everything starts to click. This is overall a good mood album, something that you get just basically time travel to back in the 1980s, have your Walkman here, the tape rolling and the stupid looking foam, earpieces all over your head. You're jogging through the sunbathing beach or something with your stupid looking shorts and stupid t-shirt having some stupid logo, I don't know, or you take a look at Miami Vice TV series, and it's all about 80s, it's all about having this weird style, but everything is kind of like good feeling. I don't know if it's about huge piles of cocaine or lots of trendy drinks back in the 1980s with, you know, long glasses and all that stuff. That doesn't matter. It's kind of a nostalgic feeling. But then again, with the new twists and turns that actually make this album as a whole. Take movies like American Ninja. They are stupid but entertaining, and the same goes for this album. This is kind of a, you know, a kind of a rock version of what this, you know, synthwave music is doing with synthesizer. They're taking you the back times when synth music was having kind of a plastic sound, not so much orchestral stuff and all that stuff what, you know, video game or movie soundtracks are doing with their orchestrations and whatnot, not to mention metal bands going so opera or orchestral or whatever with symphonic stuff. So while they are going, you know, big and majestic and all that stuff, this is kind of like taking you back to the times when things were so different, so far away, yet kind of a very easy to relate. That is, unless you are 15 or something. Now, what makes this album so enjoyable is that while these guys are basically recycling idea, they're doing it with style. They're doing it so goddamn well that it brings a smile on your face. Even when if you're a cynic, you know, dark throne worshipping black metal, I don't know, hermit or whatever. But this is kind of like the opposite. It's something that kind of fills up your energy levels and takes you to the crazy levels of, you know, these colors and weird mindsets. You know, 80s vibes going crazy. It's like you unleashing your inner animal to go party even you know you shouldn't. It almost makes you dance even though you know you hate it. Well, I do anyway. I don't know, this just, you know, pushes all the right buttons, even though I know it feels awkward. It feels so weird to like this kind of music, but then again, that's the fascination of what Turbonegro is all about. Being weird, being this humor piece of whatever at the same time, and it's kind of like creating these, you know, contradictions in my head. I should not like this because it's not my cup of tea. But yeah, I do like this because it's so weird, it's so bizarre, mind-blowing. I don't know about you guys. If you are die-hard metalheads and you cannot stand anything else than your favorite subgenre of music, then get the hell out of here and you don't waste your time on Turbonegro. But then again, if you're one of those people who actually want to have something to balance out your super dark, you know, depressive, genocidal black metal, or that uber horrid, brutal death metal grinding machine or whatever, then you might have a chance with Turbonegro. It's kind of a truck you didn't know you want to use, but you ended up using anyway because it makes you smile, it makes you feel whole, because in the end it's about yin-yang, both good and evil, dark and light and whatever. If this doesn't make sense to you, skip the album, skip the review and all that stuff. But those who know you need both sides, this is your cup of tea. RockNRoll Machine is probably, or let's say definitely, one of the better albums to come out early 2018. So check it out and hope you like it. So that is all from me. See you with the next review, and as always, if you like the channel and if you like the review, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so far. See you next time with something more metallic. Rauta.